The key was still warm in my palm. I was holding it so tightly it was starting to leave a mark on my skin. I had waited for this day for what felt like my whole life. I had sacrificed, worked until I was exhausted, and saved every single dollar I could just to hold this one little piece of metal. It was the key to my first apartment. My own home. But before I could take a single step forward to unlock the door, a harsh laugh ripped through the quiet hallway. Before we begin, I'd love to know who's listening. Where are you joining from? Tell me your city in the comments below. And after you've heard my whole story, be honest. What would you have done in my situation? Tell me in the comments. We read every single one. Now let's begin. Not yours, Claire. My father's voice boomed, sharp and mocking. Thomas Donovan had always enjoyed making me feel small in front of other people, but this time, his words cut deeper than they ever had before. What? I froze, the happy smile on my face collapsing into confusion. My mother, Margaret, strode forward. She was wearing her expensive pearls and a pressed blazer. Her eyes sliced into me like knives. We've decided Vanessa will be living here, she announced. She deserves it more. My younger sister, Vanessa, immediately stepped closer. A smug smile was on her face. Her perfectly manicured hand reached out greedily for my key. Oh my God, really? She said, her voice full of fake excitement. Thank you, Mom, Dad. The sound of her joy burned in my chest like acid. No, I snapped, clutching the key so hard it dug into my skin. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. I was shaking with pure fury. This is mine. I worked for this. Every single cent, every double shift I worked. I earned this place. My father didn't even flinch. Instead, he reached out and pried the key right out of my hand. He dangled it in front of Vanessa like it was a prize she had won. Claire, stop embarrassing yourself, he said coldly. You never needed a place anyway. You waste your life, bouncing between dead-end jobs. Vanessa, he said, turning to her with a proud smile. She's the daughter who will actually make something of herself. My mother smirked, her voice low but cutting. We're proud of her. You? Not so much. That's why she deserves it more. The neighbors who had gathered in the hallway to welcome me gasped. They whispered behind their hands. Every face looking at me felt like a bright spotlight. Every murmur felt like a knife cutting my skin. Vanessa grabbed the key, her smile smug and victorious. Guess I'm moving in, sis, she said. Better luck next time. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the walls down around me. Instead, the words slipped out in a hurt whisper. You're stealing from me. You've always been so dramatic, my father scoffed. Grow up. And then, a new sound echoed behind me. The sound of polished shoes on the tile floor. Heavy, certain, unshakable. Every whisper stopped. Every head turned. It was Ethan, my husband. He seemed to fill the narrow hallway just by being there. He was wearing a sharp charcoal suit that caught the overhead light. His gaze was so sharp it seemed to freeze my parents where they stood. The neighbors stepped aside for him almost without thinking, as if a powerful force was radiating from him. Vanessa's smug grin faltered. My mother's perfect posture stiffened. Even my father's confident smirk wavered. Ethan walked straight to me. He slipped a strong arm around my waist. His voice was low, but it commanded the entire hallway. Claire, he said. He kissed my temple softly, a gesture of pure support. Then he turned his icy gaze on my family. Without another word, he pulled a sleek, professional-looking folder from his briefcase. It was heavy with official, embossed seals. He dropped it on the small reception desk with a loud thud that made everyone in the hall flinch. This, he said, his tone cutting through the silence like a blade, is proof that not only does Claire own this apartment, she owns the entire building. Gasps filled the air. Vanessa's hand shook, the stolen key suddenly feeling heavy in her grip. My parents stared, their faces a mask of shock, as if the floor had just been ripped out from under them. And for the first time that day I smiled. The hallway was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. My father's hand twitched, as if he wanted to snatch the folder Ethan had slammed down, but he didn't dare move. The neighbors leaned in, their eyes wide, waiting for what would happen next. What do you mean she owns the building? Thomas finally managed to say. His voice was cracking, even though he was trying to sound stern. Ethan didn't even look at him at first. He kept his arm around my waist, his eyes on me, as if he knew how much anger was boiling inside me. Then, slowly, he turned his piercing gaze on my father. I mean exactly what I said, Ethan replied, his voice cold. He flipped open the folder and slid out a thick stack of documents. They were all stamped with official signatures and seals. Deeds, contracts, everything is under Claire Donovan's name. This apartment, the floors above us, the retail shops downstairs. This entire property is hers. More gasps erupted from the crowd. One neighbor was so shocked, she dropped her grocery bag. Apples rolled noisily across the tiles. Vanessa was clutching the key so tightly, her knuckles were white. "That's not possible," she stammered, shaking her head. "She doesn't have that kind of money." "Be careful," Ethan cut in, his voice like ice. "Don't mistake what you think you know for the truth." My mother stepped forward, her smile shaky, but her words still sharp. "This is ridiculous. Claire could never manage something like this. She can barely keep a steady job." That's when Ethan's lips curved into the faintest, most dangerous smirk. "Which is exactly why she married me," he said. The words dropped like a thunderclap. Every eye in the hall snapped back to me. My parents' faces drained of all color, as if the ground had truly collapsed beneath them. "You married him?" my father hissed, his voice full of disbelief and rage. I straightened my shoulders. I was no longer shaking. I no longer felt small. I looked my father directly in the eye. "Yes," I said, my voice clear and strong. "And unlike you, Ethan believed in me when no one else did. He stood by me while I scraped for every dollar. He never mocked me for not being enough. He saw my worth." For once, my voice didn't tremble. It cut through the air. Ethan's arm tightened around me, a silent show of strength. He pulled another document from the folder and slid it across the desk. "Here's the part you'll like, Thomas," he said. "I know you've always been obsessed with money. See that stamp? Paid in full. No mortgage, no loans, no debts. Claire is the sole owner." The crowd murmured louder. People had their phones out, recording. Some neighbors were even smiling, as if they were watching a long overdue justice. Vanessa's jaw dropped. But you said you were saving for years, Claire. You said this apartment was your dream. You lied." I turned to her, finally letting all the fury show in my eyes. "I didn't lie, Vanessa," I said. "I saved. I worked. I bled for this. But I also built a life beyond the one you all tried to trap me in. While you were mocking me, I was growing stronger." I glanced at the folder, then back at her hand, which was still trembling around the key. "And now, you're standing in my hallway, holding my key to my apartment, in my building." Her face completely crumpled. She dropped the key, as if it had burned her. The metallic clink as it hit the floor echoed through the silent hall. My mother's voice turned shrill. "This is absurd. You can't just walk in here and humiliate us." Ethan cut her off, his voice low and razor sharp. "Humiliate you? No, Margaret. That's what you did to Claire. For years, in front of neighbors, in front of friends. But today," he pointed to the folder, his eyes narrowing. "Today, the world sees the truth. She's not the failure you painted her to be. She's the owner. And you are nothing more than trespassers." The word trespassers hit them like a physical slap. My father staggered back a step, his face blotchy with anger and shame. "This is insane," he sputtered. "She's our daughter. We were only trying to control me," I snapped, cutting him off for the first time in my life. My voice rang out, strong and commanding. "All my life, you've decided what I deserve and what I don't. You took my choices. You belittled me. You made me feel worthless. But not anymore. Not today." For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The hallway buzzed with the weight of what had just happened. Then, Ethan reached down, picked up the key from the floor, and pressed it firmly back into my hand. "Claire Donovan," he said softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "This belongs to you, and no one can ever take it away from you again." The silence broke into a wave of whispers. Neighbors clapped quietly. Some nodded in approval. Others looked at my parents with disgust. Vanessa's face was pale. "Mom, Dad," she whispered, "let's just go." "We're not going anywhere," my mother sputtered. But my father grabbed her arm. His pride was crumbling. His eyes flicked between Ethan and me, his voice bitter but weak. "This isn't over." I met his glare without flinching. "Oh," I said, my voice steady and final. "It is." With that, Ethan unlocked the apartment door, my apartment door, and guided me inside. The sound of the door slamming shut behind us felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything they had tried to steal from me. The door shut, muffling the chaos in the hallway. My chest was heaving. Adrenaline was still rushing through my veins. I should have felt victorious, but instead I felt raw and trembling, as if every nerve in my body was on fire. Ethan set the folder down on the granite kitchen counter and turned to me. His voice was soft. "Claire, breathe. They can't hurt you anymore." But even as he said it, a sharp knock rattled the door. Then another, louder and angrier. My father's voice thundered from the hallway. "Claire, open this door right now. You don't walk away from your family like this." My jaw clenched. These words weren't new. I had heard them my whole life, every time I tried to stand up for myself. But this time I wasn't that weak girl anymore. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Do you want me to handle this?" I shook my head, even though my legs were shaking. "No, not anymore. They need to hear this from me." I opened the door. The hallway was still crowded. Neighbors were pretending to mind their own business, but they were listening to every word. My father stood rigid, his fists balled at his sides. My mother looked pale, but defiant. Vanessa hid behind them, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You think this is over?" My father growled. "You humiliated us, in front of everyone. You made us look like beggars at our own daughter's home. Do you know what people will say?" I held his gaze, my voice steady, despite the quiver in my chest. "For once, they'll say the truth. That I'm not the weak one. That I worked for something, and it's mine. You can't rewrite that story anymore." My mother sneered. "Don't be dramatic, Claire. We're your parents. We gave you everything. Everything." I cut her off, my voice rising stronger than I'd ever heard it. "You gave me nothing but shame. Every time I failed, you reminded me. Every time I succeeded, you ignored me. And when I finally had something of my own, you tried to steal it for Vanessa." The crowd shifted. People exchanged looks and nodded quietly. My parents weren't just facing me anymore. They were facing judgment from everyone around them. Ethan stepped beside me, his tone low but cutting. "Thomas, Margaret, this isn't your stage anymore. Claire doesn't need your approval, and she doesn't need your permission. She's done being your puppet." My father's jaw ticked. I thought he might explode, but instead he gave a bitter laugh. "You really think this man saves you? You think his money makes you better than us?" "No," I said firmly. "His respect does. It's something you never, ever gave me." The words landed heavily. My mother's lips trembled. My father's face flushed with something uglier than anger, exposed weakness. Vanessa, desperate to win, spoke up. "Claire, you don't get it. You've always been average. I'm the one with potential. I'm the one they invested in. They only wanted what was best for me because they knew you'd never be more than ordinary." Her words were meant to slice me open, but instead of bleeding, I felt steel rise inside me. I stepped closer, my voice like a blade. "You're right, Vanessa. I was ordinary. But ordinary doesn't break. Ordinary learns how to survive. It learns how to build and how to fight when no one is in its corner." I gestured toward Ethan, toward the documents, toward the apartment that was mine. "And now, ordinary is the one standing tall, while you're all scrambling." Her face turned bright red. "You'll regret this." Ethan chuckled darkly. "No, Vanessa, you will." The silence that followed was suffocating. My father finally spoke, his voice tight with defeated rage. "You think money protects you? This isn't over. We'll find another way." Ethan's eyes hardened. His voice was calm, but laced with a quiet threat. "Try it, and you'll find that Claire is not the girl you pushed around anymore. She has the law, she has power, and she has me. Push her again, and you'll regret it." My father looked like he wanted to lunge forward, but my mother pulled him back, her nails digging into his sleeve. Her eyes darted to the neighbors, who were still watching and recording. She knew they had already lost. They turned to leave, their pride in ruins. Vanessa lingered for one last, bitter glare before following them, her heels clicking furiously down the hall. The moment they were gone, the neighbors broke into quiet applause. It was hesitant at first, but then it grew, filled with genuine support. I blinked, stunned. For once, the crowd wasn't laughing at me. They were standing with me. Ethan closed the door and pulled me into his chest. "You did it," he whispered into my hair. "Not me. You stood up to them." For the first time in years, I believed him. The fear that had lived inside me, the heavy weight of their control, it was gone. All that was left was a strong, steady fire. But deep down, I knew this wasn't completely finished. My parents never gave up quietly, and Vanessa would never accept defeat. The real battle for my peace, I realized, was only just beginning. The apartment was finally quiet, but my nerves were not. I sat on the edge of the new couch, staring at the folder on the table. My chest felt heavy with both relief and dread. Ethan handed me a glass of water. "They won't stop here," I whispered, stating what we both knew. "I know," he admitted. "But that's why we prepared for this." His tone made me pause. Prepared? Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed violently on the table. It was an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Vanessa. Her voice hissed through the line. "You think you won? You humiliated us. You embarrassed Dad in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what you did to our family's name?" I closed my eyes, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. "Vanessa, the only people who destroyed your reputation are you and our parents, not me. You're going to regret this," she snapped. "You'll see." Then the line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. Ethan's hand rested on my shoulder. "Steady," he said. "Let them talk. Their power only existed because you gave it to them. Tonight, you proved you don't anymore." But Vanessa didn't waste time. Within hours, the whispers spread online. Posts filled with half-truths and outright lies painted me as an ungrateful daughter who had betrayed her own family. Anonymous accounts flooded the building's social media page, claiming I had tricked Ethan into marrying me for his money. I scrolled through the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. "They're trying to ruin me," I whispered, feeling the old fear creep back in. Ethan calmly took the phone and set it aside. "Then," he said, his voice firm, "let's ruin their lies with the truth." He unlocked his briefcase and pulled out another document. This one was smaller, but it felt heavier with meaning. "I had this prepared in case your family tried anything," he explained. "It's a legal notice. Trespassing, harassment, defamation. It outlines everything they're already guilty of. If they push harder, we push back." Legally, my breath caught in my chest. For years, I had no defense, no shield against their attacks. And now, I had more than just protection. I had control. The next morning, just as we predicted, my parents returned with Vanessa. Their raised voices echoed in the lobby. But this time, I didn't hide. I walked downstairs, Ethan at my side, the new legal documents clutched firmly in my hand. "Claire," my father barked, the veins in his neck straining. "Do you realize the damage you've done? We're your blood. We deserve respect." Neighbors gathered again, curious. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. "You're right," I said, my voice clear and steady for everyone to hear. "You are my blood. But respect isn't given just because of blood. It's earned. And you lost mine a long, long time ago." My mother scoffed. "You think anyone believes you? You've poisoned this community against us." "No," I cut in, lifting the papers high. "You did that yourselves. And if you don't leave me alone, these documents go straight to the authorities. Every lie you've spread online, every time you've tried to steal from me, it all becomes official evidence." My father's face drained of all color. Vanessa's lips trembled, but she forced a sneer. "You wouldn't dare." Ethan's voice sliced through the air, cold and final. "Try us." The silence stretched. Neighbors exchanged looks. Someone even muttered, "She's right. You went too far." For the first time, my parents looked truly small. Stripped of the power they had clung to for all of my life, they had nothing left to threaten me with. My father finally turned away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. My mother followed, her eyes burning with a deep humiliation. Vanessa lingered for a moment longer, glaring at me with pure hatred, then stormed out after them. And just like that, they were gone. I exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 20 years. My hands were shaking, but this time it was from the immense weight being lifted off my shoulders. Ethan's arm wrapped around me, grounding me. "You did it," he whispered. I looked up at him, and the tears finally came. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the weak one, the girl fighting for scraps of love. I was Claire Donovan, a woman who had taken back her voice, her power, and her life. And as I stood in the quiet lobby of the building I owned, I realized the ultimate truth. They had tried to take everything from me. Instead, their cruelty had handed me the strength I needed to finally rise.